I love this idea, though, of creating space for people and for ideas. That whole notion of creating space
Yes.
means that, hey, I don't know it all, but I'll leave the space, to try things out that I may just feel my gut.
And see what you said? You said gut.
Yeah.
That's the thing that we have to remember. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. If you're comfortable being uncomfortable, then you can go after your dream. Frankly speaking, baby.
What's interesting to me, though, is that you can have that moment, which is hard enough to get to that moment of achievement, whatever, however you define that. And hopefully you do it in a way that actually serves your soul, right? And so but doing it over a long period of time is really difficult because everything around us is changing, right? Everything is changing. Social institutions are changing, technology is changing, consumer behavior is changing, consciousness is changing. So adapting to that is very difficult. You've done it now for 40 years. Like that's a tough thing to do. Like what allows you to adapt to all the change that's constantly happening around us and the change that's happening at an accelerating rate?
I think you have to, you rise to the level of your incompetence and then you increase your competency. Right? So it's like,
So you're uncomfortable with that level of
right. So when you take yourself to a level where you know nothing and then you have to learn everything you can about that level.
Yeah.
Like you can't solve 5th grade problems with 4th grade thinking. So you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. You have to go, it's kind of like quantum computing, right? Yeah. You have to take it to another level.
Yeah.
You got to go quantum on it, an order of magnitude. You have to increase your thinking by an order of magnitude, or your ability to think strategically and critically by order of magnitude. Or like, for example, like it's just the idea of, okay, I got to this level. Now let me learn as much as I can so I can go to another level.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, what happens is people, that the idea of rising to the level of your competence, like being a great number 2 your whole life, and as soon as you're number 1, you fail.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like have you been a great number 2? Bob has been a great number 2 for 15 years at the company.
Yeah.
16 years, not 20, it was 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
We're going to put Bob at number 1. As soon as you put Bob at number 1, now Bob is failing. Why?
Yeah.
Because Bob didn't increase his level of competency. He didn't stay curious. He didn't stay hungry. Yeah. He didn't take a look around the curve and find out. He didn't stay curious and hungry on his journey for knowledge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And information, that's the thing.
Yeah. And it's actually getting comfortable with this idea of being uncomfortable, right? In order to do what you're talking about, you're like, you got to push yourself to a level where you're not going to be the smartest person in the room on this particular topic.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well said. And the thing is, like, it goes back to what we was talking about, right? Because if you're like my trainer, Scooter, he says you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. This is a saying. He has it on T-shirts, right? It's like, if you're comfortable being uncomfortable, then you can go after your dreams. Because when you're out there, it's like the wisdom of uncertainty. When you're out there floating in a realm with people that are smarter than you in various areas, instead of being intimidated, you're exhilarated, you're excited.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're willing to ask the question.
Exactly.
You're willing to, press play on a podcast that's talking about some topics that maybe aren't the kinds of topics you normally would delve into.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. And it reminds me, and maybe you weren't talking about it in this context. So if this is all base, tell me. I heard you say something one time, and it just struck me, and I wrote it down. You said there's strength in vulnerability. Right?
Yeah.
And so is that what you're talking about here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Because the vulnerability, most people, when they think about vulnerability, they're thinking about macho and, oh, I'm crying, I'm being vulnerable. No. Vulnerability is taking the last shot in a basketball game. You're vulnerable.
Yeah.
If you take the last shot in the basketball game, you're vulnerable because you could lose, you could miss it. So there's a level of vulnerability in that. If you get into a boxing ring and you want to be the champion, you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
You've trained your whole life, you're ready. You may have been training since you was 8 years old, but when you get in that ring, you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like you have to be vulnerable in order to really be successful. So the people that like are pretending to be the toughest are not really giving you championship level thinking. That's kind of like it's a little pseudo.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
Yeah.
The real champions know that, you know, you got to put it all on the line. And when they say put it all on the line, what are they saying? They're saying putting it all on the line, your ego, the fact that you could lose, the fact that you could look like a fool, the
Yeah.
fact that you could look stupid, the fact that people can laugh at you, that you could be ridiculed, that, you know,
Yeah.
you quit your job to go after that, you could look crazy. Like you think about, look at Jeff Bezos, like different people, right?
Yeah.
Whole different company, but you think about like quitting your job. You think about different people we know in the industry
Yeah.
who have left to do other things. Like, look at you. Look at you stepping away from music and getting into another field and then excelling. It didn't have to go like that.
Right.
It didn't have to go like that.
True.
A lot of people would have been afraid to step away from the music industry because while it's chaotic, it's still insular,
Exactly.
and there's still a kind of a job waiting for you once you're at a certain altitude.
That's true. And when you're on the inside, you're on the
Once
inside.
you're inside, you're inside,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, man.
So true. It's so true.
You know,
And what happens though? What happens when you miss that last shot? You fail.
you set yourself up to take another one.
Ooh.
You just set yourself up to take another one.
Right.
It's just, you know,
It's not a setback. It's a setup for something.
you setback is a setup for a comeback, right? Like it's like prime example. It's like the person who loses the Super Bowl is still a pro. When you walk off that field, if you lost the Super Bowl, you're still a pro. If you lost the World Cup, you're still a pro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
still a pro when you walk off the field. You didn't get, maybe it didn't fall your way this way. Don't mean you're not a winner.
Yeah.
You just, it didn't happen for you that time, but you keep going.
Got it.
You figure it out. There's always another way.
I love it. All right, let me ask. This is an unfair question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. A lot of people will say that LL Cool J is the GOAT, greatest of all time. And what would you say to that when you hear that? When you hear people say that, how do you process that notion, like greatest of all time?
I came up
A
with
term that you pretty
Yeah.
much invented, right?
So
yeah.
I came up with the term because I'd like it to be true.
Hmm.
I would love for it to be true. I really would. That's why I came up with the whole title, the GOAT, greatest of all time. I took Muhammad Ali, greatest of all times, Earl and Manigault, the GOAT, put them together, greatest of all time. I came up with it. But the reality is that it can never be true
Interesting.
for any artist
Right.
because those artists, the way an artist touch, you can't tell a 19-year-old that's growing up on Kendrick that LL's the GOAT. You can't tell some kid who grew up, who was loving Tupac his whole life, that LL's, you know what I mean?
Right,
So
right.
it really can't be, it can only be true to those who believe it, right? And so for me, it was always true to me because that's just part of my personal makeup.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
but the reality is, it just the fact that I coined the term and that it's used in every walk of society for
Yeah,
me
yeah.
is a victory in and of itself.
100%.
You
Yeah.
know, but can it really be true? Not really.
Right.
You know, but it can be sometimes, right? And I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Like I'm totally comfortable with that. Like I don't have an issue with other people being called that. I don't have an issue with, you know, other artists,
Right.
you know, calling themselves the GOAT. It's you
Right,
know,
right.
it's all good.
Right.
You know?
Right. It's more, you see it more. It's the pantheons of greats, and they all influence different. To your point, bring out different things in different people, and that serves them well. That's greatness. Great.
It's like, it's linguistics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've given people a term that encapsulates an idea,
Yeah.
and they can use that term that encapsulates that idea, that GOAT term, which encapsulates that idea, and they can use it to their advantage, and they can use it when they need to use it. And that's the beauty of it, right? Because I found a way to use it for me. I
Right.
came up with a way to use a thing, to find that thing inside of me that makes me tick, that makes me want it all, that makes me want to go get it. I'm the GOAT.
I
You know what I'm
love
saying? I
Yeah.
found that for me. And then I shared it with the world. And then it actually, because it's inside of everybody, they start embracing it. You dig?
it. I got it.
Yeah.
And so, even to this day, that's how you approach it, right? So you launched an album, released an album last year, The Force.
Yeah.
Yeah. And great, great songs, great album,
Thank
great,
you.
great performances and tours around that. When you thought about that, going back into the studio,
Yeah.
And you've been we're gonna get in touch on some of this. CEO of Rock the Bells. You have a great Rock the Bells show on Sirius XM. You got tours. You're a philanthropist. You got all these things happening on top of music, and you decide I'm gonna go back to the core, the
Yeah.
foundation,
Yeah.
and you still have the same
I love it.
passion,
I love it.
energy.
I
Really,
love it.
yeah.
It's like a comedian going back to stand up.
Mm,
But for me, it's like going back in the studio. I love it. I love it because and the reception was amazing.
yeah,
It wasn't a commercial impact like that it may have been like when I was in my 20s, but the fan reception and the critical reception and the way people embraced the record, it feels amazing and it just proves to me that it's doable.
yeah,
Like the fact that, me and M could do Murdergram and like
yeah.
it could go crazy the way it did and, not even be a single
Right.
and
Yeah.
just go crazy. And like the fact that it's embraced and there's more coming. Like I'm actually about to do a second wave of visuals and everything for the Force. I'm actually not done with it. Like people would assume I'm done, but they just don't know me very well.
Exactly.
Because it's actually a whole nother wave coming.
And that's actually the cool thing about an album today. Is like it's not like it used to be where you had to package it up and put it on the shelf. It could be something that continually unfolds.
It can be, yes, it can be an ever-evolving organism.
Yeah.
And, man, I just love the idea of having fun.
Yeah.
And doing stuff that's enjoyable and doing stuff that's inspiring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And you're following up with All World. Is that right? Yeah.
All World was a greatest hits package. I have those compilations of greatest hits.
Yeah.
All World's greatest hits compilations. But I have the festival coming.
Okay.
I have the Force.
And let's touch on the festival a little bit and timeless hip hop. Let's focus on Rock the Bells.
Okay.
And it started with the radio show, right? I
Yeah, radio
that's
station.
like
Yeah. So we have a channel on Sirius XM,
Yeah.
channel 43, and it's 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's all timeless hip hop with some new energy mixed in and blended in. And the whole idea was that I don't want to allow great artists to be marginalized and become turned into footnotes by just because of a lack of commercial exposure.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, you know what? Somebody has to do something about that because, these are great artists like Melly Mel. You talked about Kumo D. You talk about these different artists. They're amazing. Spoonie G.
Yeah.
Treacherous 3, Fearless 4, Crash Crew, Furious 5, Grandmaster Flash, Then, of course, you have all of the newer ones as well. But just naming those artists, like, I want those people to be remembered for all times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you know how they say, like a book like, let's say, the history of the Peloponnesian Wars would be like a book for all time, a book for all ages.
Right.
I believe that these artists are artists for all ages. And when I say all ages, I'm not talking about your age currently, your birthday. I'm talking about all
Time.
ages, all time.
Yeah.
Epochs, eras.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And that's why you call it timeless.
it's timeless.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we can add the new and add the fresh and add all of that. But I don't want, it's too special to me to allow it to be forgotten.
And how do you make a connection between that and I don't mean to sound derogatory, but kind of the microwavable culture, right? Which is like, it's like, hey, it's quick, it's in, it's out, it's done. It's like fast food music, right?
Some of it is.
Yeah. And so how do you make that connection with timeless music, with things that are moving at such a rapid pace that are in and out? Have we lost a generation of audiences that have the capacity to hold on to things that are timeless, or do you think it speaks to something deep within us, and that if you can expose them, it will prevail ultimately?
Well, one of the things, like, we have a show called Salute the Sample that we do on Rock the Bells.
Yeah.
And one of the special things about Salute the Sample is the fact that you find out how timeless things really are.
Yeah.
So you can have a song like Friends, produced by Larry Smith, for Houdini, and then that same Friends riff could be incorporated into "If I Ruled the World" by Nas.
Yeah.
With a sprinkle of a Curtis Blow chorus with Lauryn Hill, and then that same song can be incorporated into a song by MF Doom with maybe "Friends and Strangers" with
Right.
Caldwell in it as well. And so what you find out is the timeless nature of things takes care of themselves. It takes care of itself when it's timeless.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to be overly concerned with the microwavable aspects as long as you don't lose sight philosophically of what is truly timeless.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in other words, as long as I'm paying attention to certain principles, right?
Yeah.
The rest can take care of itself. It's kind of like math, right? There are certain equations that are timeless.
That's right.
There are certain equations that are relevant. There are other equations that may, like you have people talking about Hilbert space, and you have people talking about this different, and some of those are questionable. And then you have string theory, and people think some of it's questionable, some of it isn't. But then you have things like E equals MC squared or Schrodinger's equation, and these things are more utilized on a daily basis.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like there's certain things that are used more than others. So the timeless things stay.
Yeah.
Like what I've found is that with doing Rock the Bells and doing that station, the thing that I found out is the things that are truly important and the things that are truly timeless, they stay.
Yeah.
They just stick.
Yeah.
And so you don't even have to trip. There's certain songs that will be here.
Right.
There's certain songs, and it don't matter when it is going to, like Not Like Us will be here.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
there's certain things that are going to be here.
Yeah.
And then there's certain things it's like whatever. And that's from every era. That's from every era.
And when did you decide, okay, this is great, I got momentum, it's a great radio show, but you also have festivals now, I think you have merch too?
Yeah,
and
we
so-
have. Yeah, so Rock the Bells is the radio channel. Rock the Bells is a company that connects brands with the fans of the culture. So like if let's say Visa wanted to talk to hip hop culture in a certain way, Rock the Bells can help facilitate that conversation in a way that is true and authentic. Because what I don't do and what we're not going to do is just do anything with anybody just to get a dollar.
Right.
I'm only going to do things that elevate the culture and can really benefit both parties.
Yeah.
And so there's a certain amount of there's just that truth and that authenticity that comes with what we do.
Yeah.
So whether it's the festival, whether it's licensing, whether it's the merch, whether it's business opportunities and for these artists, whether it's, going around the world, different forms of distribution, other things that we have in our operational pipeline that are coming later, all of these things will ultimately elevate the culture in a truthful and meaningful way.
Yeah.
And connect
Yeah.
fans, brands with our cultures. And the reason I did it is because the selfish reason is I want to be able to make sure that hip hop culture is preserved. But in order to do that, I have to figure out how to monetize it in a way that makes sense and that can be helpful to the culture and to others.
Yeah.
So you provide a service. So if I can introduce you to this culture in a way that makes sense, everybody wins.
Yeah.
And I selfishly get to continue to promote and uplift this genre for all ages and for all time.
Yeah.
And that is the trade-off, and it's a positive one.
Yeah.
Because
For everyone.
everybody wins.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that was the thinking. You know what I mean?
And what do you think? 'Cause I love this whole win-win idea, and that you won't do it if it doesn't elevate the culture, or if it's
No.
not good for your brand.
That's
also, right? What do you think brands get wrong? When brands come into a partner, not even necessarily with Rock the Bells, just in general, when they come into a partnership and they see that you're connected to an audience, connected to a culture, you have a great kind of voice within that culture or that subculture. What do brands get wrong?
I'll tell you exactly what they get. What I believe they get wrong. I think they're hyper focused on being trendy as opposed to being focused on what is true and what resonates with the people. Chicken sandwiches were really, really hot for a minute. at that period, at that point in time, if chicken sandwiches, when I'm not gonna say the company,
I know
but if
what you're
those fried chicken sandwiches were an artist, every company would have wanted to be in business with those fried chicken sandwiches.
Yeah.
Rock the Bells would have just focused on Thanksgiving like we always did.
Right. So you so
I
across
think you
yeah,
go to what's true
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and you
To a
trust
deeper
the
truth.
people.
Yeah.
You trust that the people love what they love.
Yeah.
You don't have to be trendy all the time.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about truth
Yeah.
in terms of your connection with the art.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that matters.
I'll tell you, man. I think that's one of the hard things on the corporate side, and I'm putting Visa aside, just in general, because what you're talking about is it's identifying a deeper truth, but it's also across the board. What you're talking about is being soulful. It's like across the board.
It's soulful, and you know what else it is? It's being able to trust your instincts.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people a lot of people are just pragmatic to the point where it actually is a disadvantage.
Right.
It's like they are so hyper focused on what has already worked
Yeah.
that they will not allow themselves to do anything new.
Yeah.
And if you get to the core reason for it, they're afraid.
Yeah.
They would never admit that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they're afraid.
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah.
And they call themselves private. And then you have people who are idealistic to a fault where they'll just randomly do anything
Yeah.
and they go off the rails for the other reason because they're reckless.
Right.
Right? So it's like you don't want to be reckless, but you don't want to be so cautious that you can't do anything for the company.
Right.
So it's kind of like you got to find that middle ground. So when you get with a company like Rock the Bells and you get with us and we're guiding you down this path of hip hop culture, I'm not going to do something that's corny and you're going to touch the people if you trust it. Prime example, our cruise. Our cruise has been selling out 3-4 times. I think this is our 3rd or 4th year.
Really.
The Rock the Bells cruise has been selling out every year.
Huh. But when you first pitched the idea, hey, I'm going to have a cruise. It's going to be based on timeless hip hop.
And where is the rapper that appeals to 14-year-olds?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
It's the pragmatic thing always.
Yeah.
And my thing is that there is a happy medium.
Yeah.
There's a balance there. It's not to say that there's anything wrong. The math should math.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that, and you know better than me. You're all about the math. The
Yeah.
math has to math, but at the same time,
Yeah.
take some risks.
Right.
Take calculated risks.
Right.
Right? Like, when you get in the car with your coffee in the morning, you're taking a calculated risk that you're not going to give yourself 3rd-degree burns when you slam on the brake.
Right.
You drink coffee in the car.
Right.
You can do that in other areas of your life.
Right.
There are times when you can drink coffee in the car.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
In your business, when you're making decisions.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times that's the thing that I'm trying to get people to understand. I'm trying to get them to understand that a prime example, perfect example. You said Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
You said Bob Dylan. Who are Bob Dylan's fans?
If you
Who are Bob Dylan's fans?
yeah. If you ask most people on the business side, they would say, oh, they're 60 plus or something.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I rest
and
my
primarily
case.
white. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And here we have a movie that
Right.
popular appeal, critical acclaim. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so there's no reason why Run DMC
Yeah.
or the Beastie Boys
Yeah.
or LL Cool J, Straight Outta Compton showed you.
Yeah.
Dr. Dre and NWA, that movie, Straight Outta Compton, that biopic showed you
Yeah.
what I'm talking about.
But what you're talking about, those it's imagination. It's also creating space for the unknown. And if I even look at the traditional industries that did that, like the film companies, like music labels, I feel like they're not doing that at this point. I don't see the leaps as much. And so where's the innovation coming from in the entertainment business, in music specifically today?
It's funny when you say that because if you really think about it, the areas that are supposed to be the most intellectually intense are all about imagination, right? Like science,
Yeah.
like math, right? You got to be creative, right? You got to be able to do things and come up with things and ideas, technology. So I think that innovation that you're describing, it has to come from the people who have the power to push the buttons.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately,
Yeah.
because where the idea comes from is not quite as important as allowing the idea to come to fruition.
So true. Yeah.
Right? So, like, I'll give you an example. Like my radio channel. You have guys that make records, new songs. I'll give it a shot. I'll play it. The radio right now, every channel out there right now can just make a decision and say, you know what, I'm going to give this song a shot.
Yeah.
They can say, yeah, I'm going to play LL. They can say it.
Yeah.
They can easily do it.
Yeah.
They can't, you could come up with 1,000. The reality is every company is just one person and one decision away from doing whatever they want to do. Okay?
Right.
We pretend we don't know that.
Right.
And maybe the common person, the average person isn't nearly aware of that.
Right.
But the reality is every single company is one person away from saying, hey, support that.
Right.
All you got to do is say, hey, support that. Yeah, I like that. Support that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what does that mean? It means that if the gatekeepers or the people that are in positions of power decide, you know what? We're not going to be foolish with our money. We're not going to be reckless, but we are going to put X amount of dollars over here. We are going to take a harder look at innovation. We are going to get a little bit more intentional about being creative.
Right.
We are going to pay attention to the intern with the crazy idea.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
About doing some newfangled thing. We're going to pay attention to that. Like that's,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. I love
That's
that.
where you get the Steve Jobs of the world. That's
Right.
where you get the Bezos with the different business model. Look, I mean, they were losing money for 25 years, right?
Exactly right. Yeah.
I mean, look at that.
Yeah.
You look, every VC right now, there's probably VCs watching this. They know as well as you do that 25 years of losing money, very difficult.
Yeah.
That's a horrible. You got to be losing so much money that they just can't get out. That's can be the only reason.
Right.
Because other than that,
Yeah.
they can't wait to put what?
Yeah. But I love this idea though of creating space for people and for ideas because
Yes.
that whole notion of creating space
Yes.
means that hey, I don't know it all.
100%.
But I'll leave this space, to try things out that I may just feel my gut.
100%.
Yeah.
And your gut, and see what you said? You said gut.
Yeah.
That's the thing that we have to remember.
Yeah.
The gut. Okay, it's kind of like
There's more wisdom in the intuition than there is probably in the knowledge that you think you have in your brain. Yeah.
yeah, and that wisdom and that intuition comes from being able to identify patterns over long periods of time, right?
Yeah.
And so you just kind of, a pattern feels like another pattern and you start,
Yeah.
but you have to spend time in that world, right?
That's right. That's right.
And you kind of iterate. It's like you make a move and maybe the first move was off, so you have to iterate. But if you budget it and you put together a P&L that makes sense and you put together something that makes sense, you can iterate.
That's right.
And you can make it similar to like playing the end game of a chess with a chess computer over and over again, where you iterate the moves and iterate the moves and iterate the moves until you figure out the best combination to solve the issue.
Right.
Or solve the problem or checkmate
Yeah.
the idea, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
Yeah.
why not?
Right.
Like, why not? Why can't we as a society and as a country be alive creatively?
Yeah.
Why do we have to rest on the laurels of what has already been accomplished? Why?
I'm with you on that.
Who made that rule?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I want to close on this idea of giving back, and I said in the opening, a bunch of different things. You're an artist, you're an author, you're an entrepreneur, you're a CEO, but also a philanthropist. And I'm just curious how you think about this notion, because it's a curious thing to me, because everything you've been describing today,
Mhm.
even about Rock the Bells, it's a purpose-driven company. So you're already giving back in a way. So how do you think about giving back and philanthropy?
I like money. I don't love it. I've given away more money than I have.
Why?
Having way, way, way more than I need is not really that important to me. To be honest,
Mm-hmm.
it's just not that important to me. if I saved every single dime that I ever made, I'd be inconceivably way wealthier by maybe a couple of orders of magnitude than I am.
Yeah.
But that's just wasn't my thing. You know, I have everything I need, everything, everything I need, and I can get basically everything I want. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I know that's not really a popular answer. I know I'm supposed to say, you know, I want to have it, but that ain't really my thing.
So what is your thing? So that's not your thing, and you've given away more than most people would ever even think about.
Yeah.
Why? What is that fulfilling within you? Because that's your thing. Yeah.
It makes me feel like I've touched the world in a real way.
Yeah.
It makes me feel like I really have been on this planet and I did something that actually really counted. And that I've been a conduit for blessings and goodness and beautiful and beauty on the planet. That's why.
So it's almost full circle to the very beginning of this conversation when you were first coming out, you know, as a rapper, as an artist, and you said, I want to feel like I actually did something positive for the world and touch people and help people move forward and have joy in their life. It's the same thing.
Yeah, and if you think about it in terms of humanity, this concept is actually sustainable. Keeping everything is not.
That's true.
So, like, plants and trees don't keep all their seed and keep all their fruit. If they did, that wouldn't be a sustainable model.
Yeah, yeah.
If we were all giving and working with each other's companies and giving stuff and doing things and working with each other, and you're investing here and you're investing there and you're performing for this one and this one's performing with this one and this one's getting with this one and this one's creating with this one and this scientist is sharing this idea with this one and this one's sharing. Think about how the planet would be.
Yeah.
It'd be like a better world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know, tithing, giving.
Yeah.
Man, just feels good, man. Like,
Love it.
Just feels good.
I love it.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Well, Todd, look, man, love you, man. Thanks for
you
the
too, bro.
conversation. You know, really good seeing you. Good seeing you thriving. And I bet a lot of people are surprised by the depth of the conversation. And I feel like I got to go read a few philosophy books. You know, some Stoicism, the Peloponnesian
You know what I mean?
Wars.
Yeah,
We're gonna check that out. But man, thank you for making the time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate
always,
you, Frank.
Okay.
No doubt, baby.
All right, man.
Frankly speaking, baby. No
All right.
doubt.
All right.
Good stuff.